Welcome back to Ask Abundance. Today I'm joined by Kim Wheeler-Poitevien, and Kim has been doing one-on-ones with us for years and years. If you end up wanting to do a one-on-one with Kim, you can hit me up on social and I will send you a link, or you can click this in the show notes if you're listening on the pod. Here's today's question. I didn't get into this work to run a business, but private practice means I'm operating inside a capitalist system, whether I like it or not. Charging fees, marketing, and thinking about income can start to feel at odds with my values around care, access, and social justice. Sometimes I worry that wanting stability or growth means I'm selling out or losing my integrity. How do I reconcile my values driven with the reality that private practice is still a business? Juicy, juicy. So before we answer, I want to thank TherapyNotes for sponsoring Ask Abundance. I've talked about them for years. I know their features by heart, but what truly sets them apart is that they genuinely care about your experience. It's not just about troubleshooting. They actively implement user-suggested features like therapy search, secure messaging, and their AI notes feature Therapy Fuel. Everyone at TherapyNotes believes in the product and wants you to love it too. Plus, they're independently owned, which means no venture capital and no pressure to prioritize investors over customers. This independence allows them to keep their prices fair, to focus on innovation, and prioritize customer experience. With over 100,000 therapists already on board, they've proven that you don't have to compromise success for quality. If you're ready to see for yourself, try Therapy Notes free for 2 months with the code ABUNDANT at therapynotes.com. All right. What are your thoughts, Kim?
Um, I mean, it is tough,
Mm-hmm.
and there are there are quite a few ways that you can, go about this. And I see like recently that a lot of people really want to do, they want equitable fee scales. They want to really have, something that's like a little bit more of, social justice. And I think that a lot of those things can still be, can still be created, and you can still be able to have a thriving practice.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's one of those where you can start your practice that way, or you can kind of pivot and you can kind of adjust to it. And I think just like if your values change and you can say, okay, well, there are particular practices that I want to implement, or policies that I want to implement in my practice, that you can. Um, but this is the beauty about you owning your own business, is that you can do what you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a social worker, so I don't really do means testing, but I've always have reduced rates. I don't believe in means testing. I feel like that's a whole other thing. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not really a fan of it. But I also very much like will adjust what it is that a person's going to pay, um, based on what it is that they can afford. But I also realized that in order for me to do that, I had to have some kind of business plan in place. Whether you are running a nonprofit or you're running a for profit business, you still have to have a plan, because, the machine still has to keep cranking out. It still has
Mm-hmm.
to run, it still has to go. And once I kind of step back from that and kind of see that even in all the clinics that I worked in and all that, that they still had some kind of model that they had to follow through in order to be able to pay it. And so once we kind of look at it and say, okay, well, what is it that I believe in? Who is it that I want to serve? And is it accessibility? Well, how can I actually do that? And what does that look like?
Mm-hmm.
Accessibility for some person may be insurance, another person may be that they do pro bono or they just do reduced rates. Another person may be on open path. Another person may say, okay, well, I'm going to do like the green bottle.
Mm-hmm.
Each person, you can do that, and it can be whatever it is that you want it to be. And so, that's the beautiful part about it being your business. Um,
Yeah.
but I think that sometimes we're really stuck on how something has to be, that it has to be a particular way, and it doesn't have to be, um, how one person runs their business. You don't
Mm-hmm.
have to have a practice where you're charging $250 per session. You could have a practice where you're charging less than that. And also looking at the population that you work with, the location that you work with, the market that you're actually in, and seeing if that's realistic and if that's appropriate for where you are.
Mm-hmm.
It isn't a one size fits all. And I think that that's what we have to kind of look at, that we're looking at what one person is doing in one particular part of the country or whatever the population you're working with, that you can adjust it to meet, the needs of like your own clientele.
Mhm. And I think you have to be really clear on your own math and your own needs
Absolutely.
before you do this. Because I've
Absolutely.
seen so many people who really genuinely care about accessibility go into private practice and set rates that like they can't pay their taxes, they can't really pay their bills.
No.
And they end up with this volume-based practice where they have to see so many people. I saw this comedian the other day, and he's like, I've got this sliding scale therapist. She only charges me $25. So we're basically just two poor people talking.
Ugh.
And it's like you have to do the math. You can't just lead with your heart in a business. You have space for your heart in a business, but a business requires that you are responsible for that business. And that means there's cash flow.
Well, absolutely. And I think that's the hard thing. And this is when I talk to people about the fact that like if you want to open a private practice, it is a business and a
Mm-hmm.
business has to run and money is a resource. I think we put a lot of other values onto it, but money is a resource. I mean, we say
Mm-hmm.
money is power, money is this, but it is like it's the thing, like it's the gas that keeps it moving. And you have to kind of look at what it is that you need to ensure this to keep going. Like you need to pay your malpractice, you need to pay your taxes, you need to pay if you have office overhead, or you need to pay your internet. You have all these other things along with you need to feed yourself. You need to feed the actual mini machine that's running the machine, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that thing has to keep going. And I think that sometimes we tend to forget that because we really look at what the mission is and we really kind of get caught up in that and we get caught up in the why, and the why is that because I want to help this person, I want to help that person, and the thing is that if we kind of take ourselves out of it and we say, okay, well, this is what the actual problem is, right? These are what the actual pain points are. If we step back a little bit, it's like, okay, well, these individuals need help or this group needs help. Okay, but I'm only one person or we're only a collective and we can do this, but wouldn't it be great if there were more people who could do this, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't it be great if we could stay here and not be burnt out? So there are other ways that we can do that. We can, organize fundraisers. We can like donate or encourage donation to mutual aid funds so that we can actually collect that. You can be a part of a whole bunch of other systems where you're like, okay, I can accept from this particular, organization, and I can still collect my fee or close to my fee,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm getting it from a mutual aid, organization. And so there are a lot of other ways that a person who may not have the actual funds themselves to pay for therapy um, could still pay your rate.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to kind of be creative about it and also realize that each one of us still needs, income, and we still need to be able to pay ourselves, and that what we do um, is a valuable service. And
Mm-hmm.
I know that we go through this thing about this is what our worth is, but it's really hard to quantify worth.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, yeah.
and it's really hard, and it kind of goes into this thing of value, and especially now with how our economy is. But we have to be real about the fact that we have to pay our bills.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so no, but we didn't, like we didn't go into this to um, take a vow of poverty. Well, maybe I didn't. But I
Mm-hmm.
like to help people, but I also like um, to be able to eat and to
Mm-hmm.
like not have the, financial insecurity. And you can't really help someone else if you're again sitting right next to them having the same issues.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, thanks so much, Kim. And y'all, we will have the worksheet, your free worksheet from this Ask Abundance in the show notes. You've got a link. And if you're watching on social, you can DM the word sheets. And we'll see you next week.